We can chat after it, but there are people. Okay, we are back. For people who are streaming, we're back.
She was keeping
And I hope you're enjoying this as much as we are.
She doesn't like it to you, Mama.
Well, he's
It's
got
very
to look until it's
educating.
booked.
very nice.
So I don't want to book my flight before I know which day to book it.
That camera's recording Sameh. That one is just recording.
المهم ما بزهقكمش يعني.
Yeah, no, they see Sameh in the TV.
Back to work.
Just a wide angle.
Jesse pushed the record
It's
on
recording.
this. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Get back to work. So now we're going to visit some of the sites. Now we know everything about Egyptology. So we start by the pyramids. The pyramids mostly that we know of start in the Middle Kingdom all the way to Middle Kingdom, and there is one in the New Kingdom. They were tombs for burials of the kings because it's so important to maintain the mummy of the king, because he is the divine, he is the son of God that eventually has to go to the next life. After that, the pyramids were rocked. So they reverted to a new system in the New Kingdom where they buried down in the ground in Luxor. So we'll just go to the pyramids now. The area of the pyramids is this here in Memphis, were the capital, political and religious capital of Egypt. Later on in the New Kingdom, they moved down to Thebes, to answer your question, Munir.
Yes.
Okay, the political and religious capital became Thebes. We started by the Saqqara, which was an easy structure because you build it into
Which we're going to see, right? It's next to the pyramids.
Yes.
The pyramids.
Right. That is the earliest one.
Yes. خلي بالك يا Philippe, take notes. What we're going to see.
First the kings were buried in the ground. After that they built what's called mastaba, which is like the first level here, and then they got more ambitious, started to build more of these mastabas, and that became the first attempt to build a pyramid. After that, there were several attempts to have a true pyramid. They had a lot of problems with many of them, and eventually they had the one that we know of King Hofu, which was a true pyramid. It took about 150 years to come up with this technology to build a pyramid. So it's something it wasn't just done overnight. It took 150 years of trials and errors. And this is culmination of physical, architectural technology. How do you come up with a height of almost 150 meters? It's 450 feet. You come up with a point. That is incredible to have the technology layer by layer to come up to point.
Sameh, did they say how they carried the stone?
I'm coming.
Yeah. Okay.
Just a painting that was done in the 1800s, just to show how old the pyramid and the Sphinx are. When the Holy Family came to Egypt, the pyramid was 2,500 years old. That old. So that that painter, he was fascinated by the age of the Sphinx. So these are the three pyramids. Also, these three pyramids are done with some astronomical orientation. Every 2146 years.
Yeah. No. Just ignore it.
Every 2146 years, the three pyramids would line with the three stars of Mercury, Venus, and Saturn.
Oh, wow, wow.
And the last time this alignment happened was 2010.
Oh, we just missed it.
Yes, we just missed it, and there were hundreds, maybe thousands and thousands of people came to watch this. So the next one will be the year add up to 2146 plus
Not gonna worry about that.
2018. We come to the next one if you want to see the next one.
2018.
Okay. But this 2018, right? But this gives an idea of the sophistication of the astronomical knowledge they had, and they didn't leave any trace of how they arrived at that. We don't know. We don't have any written material of the astronomical. They talked a lot about stars, so we believe that their knowledge of astronomy is basically on the stars. Yes, Martin?
No, but they didn't want that to be replicated either. I mean, they
I don't think it probably it was written but lost. But they as I said, I mean, there were 150 years before that of building pyramids that did not really succeed completely. But there must have been some material there, but nothing is left.
They did share information though, because a lot of ancient Greek philosophers were said to have gone to Egypt and come back to Greece with random knowledge of astrology.
Right. When these Greeks went during the classic period, that's 500 BC. That's 1500 years after this,
Oh, wow. Okay.
or 2000 years after this.
But they knew where to go.
So the way it was built, either so you go and you build a ramp to bring up the blocks, and as the pyramid goes up, the ramp will go up all the way up, or there's another way to have ramps around the temple, around the pyramid, I mean, or there's another way of having a lever system where you have a support here, and then with the leverage you pull up the block. I don't know if you follow this or
Yes.
no. Okay.
But they are very huge.
Now to answer your question, yeah.
Can human lift up even with the leverage? Nothing is written on the wall?
Nothing is written, but it shows here how it was done. This was done on sledges. They
With
did
wet
it.
sand though, right? Didn't they
They
throw
wet
water
it-
in
they
front
wet
of
it
sand?
They're crawling it over.
They're crawling it over, but they didn't use rollers, but they used sledges.
I see.
Sledge, and they wet the sand because when the sand becomes more wet,
Wet.
so it's easier to move. And you go up the ramp, and here is another one.
You got to go up
and-
that high.
Exactly.
And yes, and they counted 2.6 million blocks in the pyramid.
My goodness.
Each block weighs 2 tons. So basically, you have to lift 4.6 million blocks.
Slavery.
Tons.
The
Tons.
workforce
What did I say?
per
Tons, yeah.
what? Per like the entire 10 years, the 14? No,
Yeah,
I
that-
don't think so.
Well, the Egyptology, we think took about 20 years, but there is a recent construction management study using the today's
Technology.
not technology, but today's knowledge of construction management, how to use construction management methods. They estimated that it took 14,567 people with a workforce of 40,000 without using pulleys or wheels, because they didn't know wheels or pulleys or iron. That iron was not known. So they believe with that, according to the critical path method that construction managers use now, it took approximately 10 years.
Did they
Wait,
use
where'd they get
animals?
Hmm?
Did they use animals?
We don't know.
And the workforce, they're not
Egyptian?
Egyptians, right?
Getting to that in 1 second. Okay.
Where did all the stones come
Quick
from?
question.
Uh,
Do they feel with today's technology and construction equipment that they can build that pyramid?
No.
Can they duplicate it?
They need lifts.
Did anybody make a study? Of
Yeah, they made an experiment of building small pyramid. I don't have it here, but the small pyramid I know the person who did it is about 7 meters high, just to see what would it take to do it by hand. And they came up with a number, and by extrapolation, they came with 20 years. But they actually brought the same size of blocks to go up 7 or 8 meters.
What about the theory of like the indoor, like the internal ramps?
That's another theory. Yes, I have.
Where did all those stones come from?
It comes from around the area of the pyramid. You see that there is
All of that.
Yes.
So it didn't like affect.
except
I
the,
thought some of them came off from the Nile.
yes. I was just gonna say that except the casing outside, which is white limestone, came across the Nile.
From Upper Egypt.
No,
Oh.
no, no. It came from the area of Maadi, Tora,
Oh, I see.
Magharat Tora.
Right.
Because it's very white, fine sand, limestone, and that so that during the day it used to shine because that completely white limestone. But that's all gone. All this casing gone.
It was all smooth.
All smooth, and that's all gone. So what you see
Do you know when
is
that went?
over the years, we don't know exactly when, but over the years, and
People
nothing,
probably
nothing.
took it. It didn't deteriorate.
Yes,
Right?
people. This was like a quarry.
One of those pieces had to be cut.
Go get some limestone for the pyramid.
Now,
Do the kitchen.
Yeah, the finish was the exterior finish was smooth.
Yeah.
How did it go? Marianne was saying it was erosion. How did it? Or
No,
they
people took it.
used it
Probably.
for
both
stuff?
erosions, because don't remember there were several earthquakes, and the pyramid was a quarry. You come with this very fine limestone. People will help themselves, and
And they did the kitchen
many parts
covers.
of Fustat is built by blocks from the pyramids from ancient Egyptian monuments. So I don't know who asked. I think you did ask this about who built the pyramids.
Yeah.
In the late 90s, I was just there when Zahi was excavating here, and they found the tombs of the pyramid workers. The workers. No, the workers, the tombs. The tombs.
That's what's-
And this is one of the tombs, and the name of one of them, and they were all Egyptians. So the pyramids were built by Egyptians, and here are the name of one of them, and the burials is Egyptian burial.
We're sure about this.
Yes,
100%.
Yes.
All Egyptian, no other.
100%. No Hebrew slaves, no
No
outer
Sudanese
space.
or Libyans.
No.
Oh, I forgot to ask
Was
about
it
the
built at
aliens.
the time of the Exodus?
No, way before that.
No, they
Way
said
before.
these
This was
mummies
built
and stuff had like
about
back.
2400
That's-
BC.
that's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the-
yeah, that they were
1000
workers,
before
yeah.
that.
Old and Middle Kingdom. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry?
That's between Old and Middle Kingdom, so that's way before it.
Way,
Exodus.
yes.
And they didn't like
1,000 years almost.
they didn't like build the workers into the pyramid like the Chinese did,
No.
right?
No,
Like,
that-
they,
these-
they passed, they
These
buried
are
them
some
somewhere else.
of the tombs of the workers that were found so far,
Okay,
but there are a lot of them,
obviously.
and you can see. I mean, I saw that, and they showed their spine is kind of compact from carrying the stone.
So it's one
I
thing,
heard
the
about that,
engineering
wanted to
and the
happen.
physical,
It's one thing,
Work.
and the worker is something else.
but do you have an approximate estimation of how many people it took in terms of workers?
15,000.
Okay, but my point is these people had to be fed, they had to be housed, they had to have
Absolutely.
water
Oh, yeah.
in the middle of a
Yeah.
They were
desert.
still
It's a
slaves.
big
So
project.
they
They-
must have had something
They
in place.
They discovered not far from the pyramid the area where they prepared the food for them. I mean that has been
They
discovered.
had a whole
And
was
infrastructure
they-
next
were
to
they
it.
in some way compensated, or was this a form of slavery almost?
No, it was not slavery. There was no slaves in ancient Egypt. What happened? There was a system of a file system where people will work like the draft. They come work 1 month a year. Several you can work more for pay, but there is an obligation to work 1 month a year, either as a laborer or as a low level priest in the temples.
But also, didn't when there was the inundation from the Nile, they couldn't work their fields,
too.
and they went and they
That too.
worked on the pyramids.
Yeah.
And vegetation was different back then.
The what?
Vegetation.
Yes.
Well, didn't they
It
also?
was different back then. It was just more trees, more. It was the land was more lush back then.
But not.
Only by the
But
Nile.
they
What you're
had
saying is,
agriculture.
you're saying about thousands of years before that. But I'm coming to that soon when I come about the Sphinx. No, we come to the Sphinx now. And the Sphinx is a big mystery because we don't know. We think it was built during Khafra, which is a builder of the second pyramid. But there are some theories that was built long before that, and Henry is an expert on that. When you look at the lower part of the Sphinx, you find that there is some deterioration here. But the head doesn't have this kind of deterioration. So this is a little bit of a mystery. Thousands of years before that, this area was covered with water. And they believe this was damage from the floods of these waters coming from the area nearby. So this must have been a very old structure. Also, well, that's the nose. The nose was cut off.
Also, they didn't like him.
There is a theory that it was cut off by Napoleon, but here is a painting by a French that he was obsessed by this, and Napoleon said to his troops, you know, this 40 centuries of history is looking on you, so behave. So he did not cut the nose. But something about the Sphinx, the head proportionately is much, much smaller than the body. So Egyptians had a very good sense of proportions. Why is the head so small? So there is a theory that this head was a lot larger, and then with deterioration, the same deterioration of the body, it was recut and it became smaller. So this would defy the idea that this is a very ancient Sphinx, that this deteriorated as well, but they cut it and became much smaller. You follow? No?
Who
Okay.
cut it?
It's all only, you know, speculation. Also, another painter, he thought that the Sphinx had so many secrets, and he had this painting about he wanted to know the secrets of the Sphinx.
Came some in a dream, didn't it?
No, the dream came to a pharaoh, to Moses IV, who had a stela between the poles of the Sphinx, about the dream he had about the Sphinx. But so now we go to temples. Most of the temples of the New Kingdom, Middle Kingdom are pretty much gone. So what we are looking at, we'll be looking at the temples from the New Kingdom onward, all the way to the end of the Roman period.
Why are they gone?
Because of time.
Oh, they just weren't built like they were used to.
And also because of the proximity to Cairo, and they were used as a quarry to build
Other things.
the first Islamic capital in about the 6th, 7th century AD.
They were recycling.
Yes.
Our history.
So this is a typical schematic of the ancient Egyptian temple. What's called the pylon, the two pylons, and an entrance here. And
This is the Fila?
sorry?
Fila?
No, this is a sort of a schematic of how the pylon looks like from outside. All this is a typical motif of a pylon. It consists of two sort of tapering towers with a cornice on top. It's a depiction of two hills, and imagine the sun comes between the two hills. So this is when the sun comes, it is a sign of rebirth, because the sun is reborn every day. So these are the two hills, and the sun is coming in between. And this is a hieroglyphic sign for rebirth, for called the Akhid. It's in a way, this is a representation of the temple. Two pylons, where the sun will come in between. This is typical for any Egyptian temple. What are these four flags? Each flag represents the hieroglyphic word for God, nature. So this is four gods. So sometimes they have two, sometimes they have four. So it's an interesting, they have the flagpole and the flag, but it's a word, the hieroglyphic word for God.
Wait, they had flags in those days?
Yes.
Cloth, like cloth
Yes.
flags? Oh.
So it's the wood, usually the pole is wood, and the flag itself is. So this is the plan of the pyramid, of the temple. This is the pylon we're looking at. And you enter, usually there's a court. That court would have limited access to people. Beyond that, it's only the pharaoh that has access, and the supporting staff, the priests. Other than that, it's not like the church or the synagogue or the mosque where people go inside to pray. The temple was the house, the abode of the pharaoh, as a semi-divine, and the gods. To be all the statues are not to be seen by anyone except the pharaoh and the gods. This is another schematic, the two pylons, the flags or the gods. You walk in here, this is limited access, only people will be admitted in time of festivals, and this is here, only the pharaoh. Same thing here, more elaborate. And now, because I have this captive audience, I'd like to talk briefly about our work in the temple, as a case in point. So we work in Abydos, which is about 300 miles south of Cairo, in the governorate of Sohag. Temple of, it's a pilgrimage area, something like Mecca or Jerusalem, where people used to go every year. It's the same thing here. Usually, people will come to this area in kayak in Kahik in October for several days. There will be thousands and thousands of people. So this is the area of Abydos, full of monuments. This is a Nile, this is the vegetation, and our temple is here. That's where we work here, and I'm just going to show you what we do in a temple in Egypt. This is our temple, right here. This is a village called Araba Madfuna. And here is a schematic of the temple we work on. This is the court, again, with limited access. This area here is only for the pharaoh and the gods. This is the temple from outside. And this is some of the inscriptions and colors inside the temple. It's very pretty temple. Nothing was done to the temple for the last 150 years. So we thought it's an excellent opportunity to go and work on its restoration. This is schematic of how the temple looks like and how the temple would have looked like before it was partially demolished, and this how the whole complex would have looked like. This is the whole, everything here is gone except this part and here, this here. So what we do is we look for texts, we excavate for texts or statues, we study the monuments, we come across mummies, we collect archaeological data and any published research and put everything together. And we did all kinds of architectural engineering that was done by Sylvia and her crew. And this is how the pylon, the facade would have looked like. And we had a publication. We converted all the inscription into line drawings to be read easily, like sort of a silhouettes. And this is, we did like our excavation outside the temple, and we came where we found a lot of but late Coptic mummies, poor burials. We found a lot of inscribed materials. And here is
And there is Sameh.
Yeah.
On this here, on the right, top right side.
Yes.
Is the vest, is it fashion or function?
what?
The vest.
My vest?
Yes.
Very functional.
Okay.
And this is a lot of material that we find underground, and we collect them, and we create database for them.
So,
And
like,
here is
those rocks and
here is
stuff.
my vest that you're talking about.
How about
It has pockets, very functional.
So this head is head of Ramses, in excellent condition. You see the color is still there, and one extremely unusual thing is the nose has been not broken. You see also the yellow color of the skin, and here is we found also the nemes, and both of them would just put together and just fit.
What's the block? Somebody wrote on it?
Yeah, that's the name of the ministry. They have to write the name of.
Oh.
Right.
on his face?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because you can always erase it.
Ah.
So this is the parts that we found in this statue: the head, the nemes, parts of the legs, and we found the legs, and some inscription on the side. And every year we go, we find additional piece. We keep adding it, and eventually we're going to put the statue together. It is 6 meters high. That's 18 feet high. It's a huge statue of granite, and we have a lot of pieces that we found. So it's like a puzzle. We're going to put them together, and we number them, and we have the first book that came 2 years ago about the temple, and the next one that's coming in May, hopefully, about the second volume of the. And here is very important member of the.
Nice location.
Very yeah. Nice vacation.
Location.
It's a nice office.
The vacation starts at 6 o'clock in the morning.
No, I mean the location. She was standing in a nice
Right.
place.
Right.
Which time of
Well,
day?
no, she has to climb. We didn't have ladders.
Oh, the
So she had to
droid.
climb up to the-
She never sent it.
Which time of the year you do excavation usually?
February, March,
Yes.
part of April sometimes.
Yeah.
What's the weather like?
I was just going to say
The weather?
You're wearing long sleeves.
Is it
Uh,
spring?
It can be cold in the morning.
We also had
Nice.
a
In between.
What to
you
the
shed
rest of
that.
It's a
Like
good
layers?
weather, yeah.
we also had a school for the young Egyptologists, inspector Egyptologists that work for the ministry. So we sponsored a school to train them hands-on last year. So here are these. We had 12 students because we believe in the number 12. So they were very happy, and they wrote here, "We are happy to learn and want to learn more."
Did they write your name?
No.
On the bottom. It
You
said,
know-
thank
They
you,
did?
Sameh.
Sema, you're standing like the statue. Is it very serious? Are you hereafter?
Where? Me?
Who's
I don't understand.
So Sameh sponsored the whole
you?
thing.
Yeah.
He's standing like a pharaoh.
Yeah, you're right, Jessica.
They were really motivated. They did.
No,
And this is the
no,
classroom
excavating,
where,
I'll ask him what he
and
do.
I'm
every
never
once a
gonna
week,
complain about
one of them
posting.
would have to make a presentation. So part of the training is how to make presentations. And here is the final exam.
Oh my
I don't think I ever took a final like that.
Yeah, outside.
Was it in Arabic or Arabic, right?
In Arabic.
In
also,
Arabic, yeah.
Do were the students bilingual or they only spoke?
I think
No,
Arabic.
the English was not good, and that was major issue that they have to learn and work on their English. And this is the staff, this the teachers. We have 12 students, and 9 instructors, because we have different disciplines: excavation, surveying, conservation. So each discipline has a teacher, and this is the whole
So
gang.
you're using all local from the
All
Yeah,
local,
yeah,
yes,
they have
yes. And this is
Oh,
when one
oh,
teacher
oh,
was
so
in the
cute.
classroom for kids. Now we go to Luxor.
Wait, I just want to say something.
Yeah, say
So
something.
Sameh has been doing that for 8 years, right? Around
12 years.
12 years.
Yes.
Okay, so he decided to study this Ramses II in detail, tremendous detail. And he also decided he wants, after he studied the temple, and now he's going some excavations around, right? So what will you be doing? He's going back in January 20th. That's why we had this lecture. I really wanted it right before our trip, but he was
He's
not
gonna be
available.
excavating.
So he's leaving on the 20th of January, right? Around
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah,
And then
21st.
he's going out on another excavation around the temple. So just tell us briefly what you plan to do when you go there.
This season will be only excavation in certain parts. One part is west of the temple. We feel that there a possibility of a structure underground that is somehow related to the temple. We excavated last year and we didn't find anything except some mummies. So we're going further out to make sure that there is that monument or is not once and for all. So we're going to make a big hole, 10 meters by 10 meters, and go down. Also, we want to excavate south of the temple because that were the priests' houses, because the temple had always around, the priests and the kitchens. So we want to do that because that will give us more information about the temple. And then we'll do some restoration on the outside. But we keep finding fragments that we'll use for the restoration, including the fragment for this statue that we saw. So every year there's more and more fragments, and we put that into database.
While you are here, they are working?
No.
Oh.
No.
And just so you know,
Not on my temple.
you can imagine there's a tremendous amount of red tape to get permits from the Egyptian authorities, and then Sameh employees.
Where are
have to
the
work.
pieces? Are they stored in a safe?
Yes.
Okay.
We clean them, number them, and the ones that had inscription on them are moved to storage where we have in the house where
And
we
it's
work.
locked and everything,
And
safe.
yes, safe. And the ones are not inscribed, usually they are not really, they are safe. Nobody wants uninscribed.
They're just
But
rocks.
we don them and clean them and photograph them. And there is a guard there year round anyway.
Oh, okay.
There are two guards there.
Whatever you find, does that become part of the, belong to the Egyptian government?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, and there are inspectors and
And,
observers.
and at the end of the season, wherever we find that we feel that they were called registered, meaning that will be registered with the ministry, they have to go to the storage in Sohag. So 5 armored cars will come
Wow.
and receive the merchandise, go to Sohag, 5 armored cars. So sometimes you have
That's
little
good.
things like this.
But that's
And the officer said, "Where is the gold?" I said, "That's inside that box. Open the box. There is nothing." So that's how it should be.
yeah,
That's
of
how it
course,
should be.
Of course.
Yes, yeah. So we go to Thebes. Thebes now, from the New Kingdom onwards, became the religious capital of Egypt, and that's why all these monuments there. The most important monument is the Karnak Temple,
Which we will see.
which you will see.
Are those
It's a
man-made lakes?
Which ones? Yes,
The lakes,
yes. This is a man-made lake. Every temple had a lake.
Oh.
That was part of the structure of a temple. This is about, I think it's 200 meters by almost 200 meters. So it's a big site. It takes several days to see. This is a schematic. Now there is no more lake here, but you will enter from here, and it just, you have to be prepared because it's a lot of walking. It's a huge temple. I want to go back, and it started by a small temple in the Middle Kingdom, and then after that every king will come and add a pylon. So 1, 2, 3, 4 pylons this way, another 4 pylons this way here, so that every king from the New Kingdom onward added something to the temple. So it's a temple that lasted several centuries, from the Middle Kingdom all the way to the Roman period. So this is how it looks like, the outside of the temple, and this is the two pylons. Now we have 4 flags, would have been 4 flags, and these holes were to hold the flags, which it's a word for the word God. And I always like pictures with people because it gives a scale of.
The animals in the front, is that like similar?
They're like sphinx. They're sphinx.
Are they like
ram-headed.
guarding? Like
There's
how they use
body of
animals
a-
like gargoyles and stuff guard the churches? Is that like a
Body of a
similar-
king and the head of a ram.
Yeah, but what's the function?
The function is
It's
a
just
protection.
aesthetic?
It's a protection.
Symbolic.
Yeah, symbol, yes. And this is the famous Karnak, and they have 134 of these columns. And you have to keep in mind these were all colored, so that's what they were all temples in Egypt, all statues were painted. And one thing you're going to see there, which is not that exciting, but I find it extremely exciting, it is a peace treaty between the Egyptians and the Hittites. Under the rule of Ramses II, he had a somewhere in here. Egypt fought the Hittites at a town called Kadesh, Quds, Kadesh, and it was these were the 2 superpowers of the world, Egypt and the Hittites. There are probably 20,000 people fighting each other. Very famous battle, ended up in a tie and ended up in a peace treaty. The first time that Egypt enters into a peace treaty, because Egypt always thought that it's beyond peace treaties, but this one they signed a peace treaty.
So the Hittites is what?
Turkey was in
Turkey,
now was
yeah.
Turkey now. Again, this is the Egyptian land, and then the Hittites here. A copy of this treaty is now in the United Nations General Assembly. If you go, you enter, you find a copy, full size, to show that in ancient Egypt, superpowers lived in peace, and now you can do that. So if you go to the General Assembly, you'll find that.
If they could
First
do it, we could do
Yeah.
it.
The only thing is, at the time to seal the deal, Ramses married the daughter of the king, the Hittite king. She can't do that now. Otherwise, Trump will marry the daughter of Putin. Right?
Kim Jong-un.
Right. And then you go to the west side,
So we're gonna see too.
That's beautiful, yeah.
which you have Amenhotep III, and also I like to have people here in the photo to give you a sense of the height, of the dimension, of the size. This was all one piece. What you see, the blocks here, this was a restoration during the Roman period around the 11th century AD. There was a huge earthquake, and that part collapsed, so the Romans restored this. So this is made of quartzite, very hard stone, made in Jabal al-Ahmar near Cairo, and one piece, each one is one piece, moved from Jabal al-Ahmar to Luxor.
How did they?
How is that it's done? And on the back, the sculptor said, and I will move the statue to Thebes, Luxor, even though nobody believes me. So it is mind-boggling. How would these 2 pieces moved from the environs of Cairo to Luxor?
Floating in the river,
Yes,
right?
but how do you carry it? And
Piece by piece, maybe.
you're absolutely right. Every temple had access to water, and if they didn't have access to water, they dig a canal, because it's easier to dig a canal than carrying 2 statues like this. This is the site. This is the 2 statues here, and this photographs was taken, I would say, in the early 90s, and the first statue was discovered here. And Sylvia and I were there with Horik Sorosian when she discovered the first statue here. Now when you go, this site looks so different. They find 4 statues like this, almost the same size, and they are being erected here. the entire site now is being resurrected because the whole temple is underground, broken into pieces.
Under there?
Right. But as I said, when we went there, we were there, the first statue came right here. Remember?
Yes.
This is an ancient Egyptian schematic of how statues were moved, again on a sledge, being pulled. That's all the information they will give us there.
Yeah, but look how many people.
Yeah, you have to, yeah. This is, you will probably will go there to Edfu. Again, it's all painted. Some of you, I understand, will go to Abu Simbel,
That's fantastic.
which is a fantastic sculpture.
Yes, yeah.
Optional.
Oh, really? That's the option.
Am I going?
That's all carved into that.
They all carved into that, right?
What about me?
I like it.
What about me?
Because when we arrived
What about me?
Osman,
No.
Neither of us?
It's not included? Okay.
When you
So-
grow up.
Yeah, I'm going.
When I grow up, this might be like the only time I get to go back.
Right.
Are you taking that too?
This is about,
Just you see the early ones.
No.
this is about almost 50 meters high. It's cut, but this is moved from another site in the mid-60s. Were cut into pieces and moved to this site.
It's like Mount
This is
Rushmore.
the new site where it was moved to, and every year, twice a year, on February 22nd and October 22nd, the sun will shine all the way inside to the statue of Ramses.
Wait, during the solstices?
No.
Just that day.
December 21st.
And we went this year, and it has become a whole big ordeal, and celebration starts at 3 o'clock in the morning. People dancing, you're thousands and thousands of people going for this
It's
event.
usually in February. On
February 22nd.
The Sun Festival is it called the Festival of the Sun?
Yes. And we went about 4 o'clock in the morning. We were very late. Everybody was already there. I mean, you're talking about huge,
They come
huge
from
crowds.
India, they come
You're not
from
gonna sleep.
Oh,
China.
Germany, from
You keep
all
sleeping,
over.
you're not
Yeah.
gonna speak.
It's very famous. Wow.
We go to Alexandria,
You never go?
the library.
That's new.
We don't know exactly where the library is. The original library, we don't know exactly where it is, but the new library is built here. A very attractive
It's like
architecture.
a wave.
The French did it, right?
The French did it right. And
They made it like a wave.
French.
we don't know exactly what happened to the old library.
I thought it
What
burned
happened
down
to it?
when Cleopatra was fighting.
Well, either there are three suspects: either the Romans when they came to Egypt in 40 BC or 60 BC, or the Christians, Romans together, or the Arabs who came. So there are all kinds of theories. Which one? I personally tend to believe it was done during the Christian period, when Theodosius the first closed all the temples and prohibited all ancient Egyptian rituals. I think during this time, this library was demolished, but nothing for sure. This is an aerial view of the library. This is here the bay, and under the bay this is another archaeological site. Has become extremely important because the whole palace of Cleopatra and the Ptolemaics was under in the water here, so you have a lot of activities in the water. Many objects were found in excellent condition, and then this is some of what the Romans did. They painted over the walls of the temple. So this is going back to Karnak. They painted over the wall in Karnak, which you'll see at the end of the the temple of Luxor temple, which I think you definitely will go there. Now I'm going to go into the Coptic monuments. It starts by the trip or the voyage of the Holy Family. Yeah, the Holy Family apparently came from east, went down to Bilbais, up, and then came down. And you will see, the one you will see is Al-Ma'ala'a, where they rested here. There's a Babylon, which is not far from it. It's on the Nile, and they went down all the way to Dir Maharra. This is Al-Ma'ala'a.
That's what
This is what you will go and see.
It's the part of the Coptic Museum. And
and this is where people used to hide underneath.
Hide? Why?
During persecution of the Roman persecution.
It's they're very nice.
They were prosecuted.
Yes. And this is, some of the Coptic. Coptic. Now this we found in our temple, which shows a very interesting period when Christianity just came to Egypt, and you see the ancient Egyptian gods and the Christ together on the same monuments. You see the cross, and the god Bes. At the same, this is like a hod, basin for washing, and then you have many monuments at this period. You see both Christian and ancient Egyptian motifs together. What is Bes doing with the Christ? I mean, somebody wanted to play safe.
Just in case.
Well, what does God best represent?
Represent rebirth.
Or maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Because Christianity is like.
Right.
And it
So
looks
there's
like a
connection.
basin, so it's like for baptism.
Maybe, yes.
New rebirth.
Right.
Yeah, that makes
Right.
sense.
So
Maybe you're right.
and then another one here where you have what looks like Saint George on the horse, but here instead you have Horus on the horse. So as it is intermediate period. Then you have the Fayoum portraits. You find it in the museum. It's a new technique for portraiture, using wax mixed with paint, with pigment. So we know how people look like at the time, because this is true portraiture. And we have a lot of icons in the museum. Now that I have a captive audience, I'll go also on another thing, which is American Research Center in Egypt. It's a center that was established in Boston in 1948 for the study and conservation of Egyptian monuments. And it grew, it became a big institution now that have offices in DC and in Cairo and Luxor. And I served as the president for 3 years. And what they do, I'm going to show the conservation in Coptic conservation. This is in Deir al-Ahmar in Sohag. This is how it looked like before conservation. This is after conservation. This took 7 years to clean. We brought conservators from Italy that knew how to deal with paint. And another one here, this is before, and this is what we did after.
Wow.
This is called fatura, meaning to leave a small piece to show the difference between before and after.
Why were their eyes so big?
That's a style.
It's just
That's
style.
a style. Islamic Egypt, there are spectacular Islamic monuments in Cairo that vies with any other capital, Istanbul or Damascus or Baghdad. This is Al-Ala, the citadel. Beautiful architecture. Very. This is Bab Zuela.
is the
Citadel, yes. This is Bab Zuela, which you really should go because you'll be in the area, not far.
Are you going to Muqattam area, Munib?
No, I don't think so.
The church is there.
This is the mosque of Al-Hakim, which is the only Shia mosque in Egypt, which I think is very pretty. This is a conservation also made by RC. This is before conservation. This is after conservation in the mosque. This is another in Old Cairo. It's completely conserved. Beautiful details.
Are those words Coptic?
No, that's Arabic.
Not
That's
Arab.
Arabic.
And also there are lots of synagogues throughout Cairo and Alexandria. There are 12 synagogues in Cairo. There's Ben Ezra Synagogue and El Daria. This is beautiful architecture here, and the one in Alexandria. Elivavi Hanafi, and this is inside.
Are all the synagogue open for
No.
visits? It's only Ben Ezra, right?
Ben Israel and another one in.
There's one in central Cairo.
The one in Central Cairo that's open.
Yeah.
That's also open. But the others, there is 12 in Cairo and 10 in Alexandria. And also the head of the Jewish community in Egypt now, Magda Haroun, who actually is coming with a project to convert all these synagogues to community centers for learning, for teaching, because you don't have the community to serve. You know, there are only 8 or 10 Jews left in Egypt.
They don't like your
8 or 10?
Yeah.
Like, that's a very exact
Total?
number.
Before
like
the
one
2011 revolution, we used to do tours to rabbis, to the Holy Land, Egypt, Jordan, and Israel. And one time we did for them a prayer on Saturday in the Ben Ezra synagogue. They were staying at the Hilton, but you know on Saturday they can't drive or do anything. The security in Egypt have secured the whole way from the Nile Hilton to the Ben Ezra synagogue.
Wow,
And all of them, they did walk to the Ben
How
Ezra.
many people were there?
80 people.
80 people.
Yeah.
It's dangerous for them to walk?
Of course.
Well, because they're wearing the yarmulkes and these are Orthodox Jews.
They would be asking for trouble if they walk alone.
The population of Jews
You have to secure.
in the at the turn of the century were about 100,000 people in Egypt. And they were a very important component of the Egyptian fabric in culture, in business,
Commerce,
in
yeah.
commerce,
Oh,
Shamla, Zebnawi, Benzion, and all of that.
A lot of banks too.
And it was in the mid to late 40s that they started to leave because of the creation of Israel. And that's what really drove
And
a
then
wedge.
Nasser really did it.
But it's really creation of Israel that had them. In
1948.
1948 was the culprit. Is that
Yes.
the date that and the rich ones left before 1948
then,
because
yeah.
they saw the handwriting on the wall,
Yes.
and they sold and they went to France. Most of the rich Jews left Egypt before 1948 because they knew what will happen.
Yes.
The rich ones.
And now there are 10 or so,
Of
and
8 to
there
10.
are of two different
Why are they still
Two different sects.
factions,
Yeah.
so they don't get.
So there's like 5 against the only 10 don't get along?
So this is the Nile in Aswan. It's a very serene city, extremely beautiful city, and serene and quiet. And for those who are going to Egypt, I have to give you a heads up or a disclaimer. An Egyptian saying, if you drink from the Nile of the water, you always go back.
Yeah. Drink, but you better not drink.
Have a good trip.
Clean, but don't fall. It's like clean, but like no.
Yeah, you cannot drink from it.
I'm surprised you didn't see it.
Yeah.
One second,
Doesn't like
let me just.
He just looked like you.
So for those who are streaming and seeing, I did not introduce my wonderful friend, Dr. Iskandar. He didn't say he's very humble. Of course, he has a PhD from New York, and also did a lot of studies and a lot of reading, not just the whole history of Egypt. And so we want to thank him
Thank you.
for coming.
It was a pleasure to meet all of you.
It's very nice of you to come, and we appreciate
I
it.
have a question. A lot of the work that you do you get grants from either the Egyptian government?
Not from the Egyptian government.
Nothing from the Egyptian government.
Let me turn this off.